It's a quick turnaround from last night, but there's a lot to get to, so let's get right to it. Madden and Benz, Unfiltered, Tim Benz, and Mark Madden with you. Listen to Mark today on the X 3 o'clock, reading me breakfast and every day throughout the course of the rest of the week. How quick of a turnaround is it? The Steelers aren't even home yet. Their plane had to land in Kansas City because
let me cut you off right there. I can tell you why that plane landed in Kansas City. Because Taylor Swift had enough already of that soup-guzzling meathead that plays tight end for the Chiefs, and she wanted to be with some real men. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, I think the biggest story after Miami scoring 70 was Taylor Swift in the Kansas City Chiefs box with Travis Kelce's mom. But apparently the Steelers plane had some sort of oil light that went on. It's nice to know that the plane is kind of like my Jeep. You know, like
Travis Kelce's mom is such a football mom, ain't she?
Yeah.
Where's the kid's jersey, even though the kid's like 30? Don't get me wrong. I'm sure she's delightful.
She is. I saw the documentary. Yeah, she's very much a football mom, but I saw some of the documentary with Jason Kelce too. Like they profiled her quite a bit. She's a fun football mom, but
if her kid played for a bad high school team, she'd campaign to get the coach fired.
But, Mark, the good news is more of her and more of Taylor Swift is less of Brittany Mahomes, and I think that's good for – and less of Jackson Mahomes.
I don't find Taylor Swift all that attractive.
And
I say that speaking of someone that no one finds attractive. I mean, she's kind of a redheaded scarecrow to me.
Well, a lot of Philadelphia fans are mad at her. Isn't she supposed to be an Eagles fan? And, she pulled the ripcord of the team just because, she got a couple DMs from Travis Kelce.
She pulled the ripcord all right.
Is that what the Steelers you thought were going to be doing after the first couple series? Because it was rough again early last night, and it was kind of rough late at times, but in the middle it was pretty good offensively.
Yeah, I thought Matt Canada had a good night. I don't know if he's going to get credit for it from the usual suspects, Tim, but they used the middle of the field. The chunk plays were there. Pickett was effective. I wouldn't say he had a great night, but he was efficient. He seemed to kind of let it flow. Like he made some plays with his feet as well that I think were a long time coming. That call to Allen Robinson that more or less sealed the game was tremendous. So I saw a lot to like about the offense. How about you?
I did like the call to Robinson because it was pretty simple. I think there was an option there for Pickett to run if he felt the need to do it, if nobody popped open. It was a hell of a lot better than trying to show how smart he was, which I think he has done at times. And it's been problematic, he being Canada.
And by trying to not do that, Tim, he looked pretty smart, didn't he?
Yes, exactly, because it worked. Unlike the 3rd-and-1 play on the very first drive to Connor Hayward. He picked up 9 yards fairly easily, and then you overcomplicated it by giving it to the fullback, the quasi-fullback.
And I do wonder if Canada's going to get the credit. I haven't, read a lot since I got up this morning or been online very much. But the usual suspects all latched onto that report that Canada was now working more closely one-on-one with Kenny Pickett, right? Like he had usurped the quarterback's coach. And people somehow read into that. 2 things I disagree with. One is that he's blaming Mike Sullivan. Okay, I just don't – that's a reach. And 2 is that it's true at all. And Mark Cavalli in The Athletic this morning, I did read that, said that, Steelers sources said that story was totally fabricated, which I believed it was in the first place, because how would some national schmuck go get that story and DeFabo, Cavalli, Fittipaldo, Dulac, none of them guys have it. So I was suspicious about that from the jump. But this is a guy that everybody's gone out of their way to blame. Will they now go out of their way to give him credit? I rather doubt it.
The 2 guys who did give him some credit, one was here's the biggest problem, Mark. The 2 guys who gave Canada the most credit are other people that Pittsburghers are either mad at or tend to hate. Chris Collinsworth and Najee Harris. Everybody's mad at Najee because they want him to be better, and Najee gave him credit for simplifying the run game. And that was dovetailing with the analysis that Collinsworth gave during the game last night, where he's talking about how the Steelers ditched their zone blocking schemes and really did an effective job of picking who and when to double team up front when it came to the Raiders' defensive line. And as a result, that got 4.2 yards per carry, which is way better than what they had been doing until those last 2 series where they lost a couple yards And I think they were just swapping out time. They were just
at least the running game didn't stink. I think that one thing we don't want to accept is that this isn't a great team, especially offensively. It doesn't have many components. So here's a conclusion I have drawn so far. They will not beat a good team unless it's a total fluke. Okay, they can beat these bummy teams Cleveland might be a little bit better than that, but not much. And then, of course, Las Vegas, based on this defense first, be economical, offensively, keep it close, yada, yada. You know the formula, Tim. It's as old as we are. You can use that to beat bummy teams, and they did that last year. But I don't think they're going to beat good teams with that formula. And the second thing is, and this has been proven the last 2 weeks, they are incapable of putting a team away. They are incapable of running away with the game. They will always let teams back in games, like they did yesterday. Tim, I was watching that game at Celebrations in Imperial to do a watch party, and when it was 23-7, nobody in the bar was relaxing.
Nor should they.
Was I, with good reason, right? That they just don't have that kind of team. They're not going to put teams away. Every game is going to be like a one-score game or closer when they win.
Especially, Mark, since I think the only thing that got in the way of the Raiders catching up, like if they did have one more possession, one more full possession, the fact that they leaned on Jacobs so much during the game and tried to get him going, I think out of a sense of obligation because the guy led the league in rushing last year.
Tim, I think you need to do that. I think that's one thing the Steelers have gone awry on oftentimes this season and last is they abandoned the run too early.
Okay, but I'm just saying with the success that Jimmy G was having finding Devontae Adams anytime he wanted to, maybe just go to that because they had two guys that they put out into patterns that say go ahead and try to cover him. And the Steelers couldn't cover him the whole night. Myers and Adams.
But I think one of the reasons those things worked was because they had the threat of a run game.
That the Steelers were so concerned about the run game that those guys got that open?
I don't know. Concern might be too strong a word, but I think they had to respect it and acknowledge it.
Adams was great. I think it's time for more Joey Porter. I mean, it was time for that probably in week 1, to be frank.
I think Joey Porter Jr. should cover the other team's best receiver, period. I mean, Pat Pete and Levi Wallace, they got interceptions. I think Wallace had 2, right?
Yes, he did.
But they got interceptions because they were mostly picked apart.
They were targeted a lot.
And then Jimmy G made bad throws. That's what happened.
Yeah, he made a couple of bad throws. You know, of course, Kenny Pickett, we talk about the game that he had, not only with the 2 touchdowns for the first time. By the way, are you going to be upset that you can't use that as a go-to line anymore?
What, the no 2 touchdown passes in the game? Yeah. No, he'll provide something else.
Well, you know what he said 3 times in a row, 1 in every game so far. This is a dropped pick 6. I mean, like that was telegraphed.
Yeah, and I honestly think if that pick 6 materializes, the Raiders might win the game.
Yeah, different ball game.
I mean, Josh McDaniels, we haven't talked about that yet. Okay, when he kicked the field goal the first time, late in the game, I got that because there was still, a lot of time left. But once he, took the new set of downs on the penalty, which was a bogus call. But once he took the new set of downs, I felt like he had to go for the touchdown period because he was pot committed, to use a poker term. He lost 49 seconds and only got the same result. 3 points.
Yeah, exactly. Like that, in a weird way, that penalty, and I thought you did a good job in the podcast talking about those penalties.
It won the game for the Steelers.
Precisely. I mean, the fact that they got really picayune on deciding to call Leal for that in that situation where it didn't even materially affect the kick, by the way. They decided to throw a flag there. It benefited the Steelers because ostensibly they only needed 1 first down. Like if, to your point, they had just let the field goal stand and never threw the flag, the Steelers probably need that second first down, which they didn't get, but Harvin bailed them out with a really good punt.
Yeah, I think that McDaniels should have just gone for the touchdown the second time around. The first time around, I got it, the field goal, but not after that. And those calls, Tim, the one only all, and then, Minka with the hit to the head, that was a hit to the head. But they hit Pickett twice in the head earlier, and it didn't get called. And, Tim, I just don't believe that there's any need to manipulate a multi-billion-dollar industry, to get even more people to watch or watch longer. But both of those calls struck me as trying to keep the result in doubt longer.
Almost like basketball refs who get caught up in the moment of a run late in a game. Like I feel like that happens to basketball officials more than any
They
other
ref
sport.
the score.
Yeah. Yep. And they're
so I didn't like those two calls, either of them.
Yeah, they get anticipatory of calls a lot of times in the NBA and college basketball, and that might have been the case. Although, like the pass interference call, I think that was pass interference. The fact that it took so long for the refs to throw the flag and they looked at each other before they did it, I think is what pissed people off. And the Minka hit, especially coming off of a week of criticism where a lot of people are going after him for hitting too low, then he's get calls for hitting too high on a play where the quarterback ducked into it.
They just don't want him to hit it all, Tim.
Yeah, they really don't. They honestly do not. And that's a problem for the sport.
Tim, after we're dead, 100 years from now, the NFL will be flag football.
I heard you talk about every other sport will be co-ed before we're dead.
Yeah, the NHL and NBA will be co-ed. You'll have to have two players on the court, two skaters on the ice that are female at all times. And you laugh?
I'm not laughing.
Look at the way this is headed, and it's going to take a long time. It'll happen.
I think like Pittsburgh Sports League will be, they'll be contracted by the NBA and NHL to figure out their rules to how to incorporate co-ed
Tim,
gender.
I'll tell you a quick funny story. I have seen, in my years of running deck hockey tournaments, I've run co-ed tournaments, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I stopped doing it because what happens is the same couple teams got all the good girl players. And that makes the tournament lopsided. That's the key to winning a co-ed tournament. But there was one game I said to the coach of an underdog team, I go, okay, you need to take your biggest forward and post him up on the small girl playing defense every shift. Just go to that post and just, hang in front of the net and overwhelm with strength. And they go, oh, well, that wouldn't be fair. And that's the direction we're headed in.
We're never going to see another guy goaltender again. You'll just Minon Rehume on every team, basically, is the way it'll go.
Oh, no, because it's two skaters, Tim.
Oh, you have to have two skaters?
Yeah, the goalie don't count. The goalie's too easy because you can find, actually, it's easier to find competent female goalies, I would think. I mean, look at look at Aaron Witten.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were good goalies.
Yeah.
Not just good, female goalies. They were good.
Mark, let's get back to football before I do want to get to hockey and the Penguins, but we have to talk about the NFL. We already talked about the Kelsey thing in Kansas City. The other storyline in Kansas City is for a while I thought they were going to catch up to the Dolphins. It was 31-0 at halftime. I thought they had a shot.
Let me ask you this, Tim. If you're Mike McDaniel, don't you kick the field goal at the end to break the record?
He was conscious of it, wasn't he? Did anybody ask him? Did anybody ask him if he knew?
I didn't see it. I didn't know till afterwards. I didn't realize, I should say. But I'd have kicked the field goal to set a record for points in the game. I mean, Tim, that wouldn't be any more embarrassing than 70 points to that juncture and over 700 yards. That's the one. The 70 points I kind of get, 700 yards. And two guys each had 4 touchdowns, tying the record set by Al Bundy.
Correct. Yes. And I don't know what was Polkai's team colors? Blue and white. Blue and white.
No, they're almost purple.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Like that dark kind of purplish blue.
I just kept thinking throughout the course of the game. You remember Warner Wolf on CBS in New York, like the sportscaster?
Right.
Whenever there was a blowout, if you had the Denver Broncos plus 49.5, you lose.
Yeah, that
lost
was
by
just
50. By 50.
I was watching Red Zone most of the day, and Red Zone was just all Miami.
Sure. I bet it was. Yes. 7 straight hours of commercial-less football, and it was all Miami in the red zone nonstop.
And I think it's great that it happened to Denver, to a jackass coach and the quarterback. How about the Miami cornerback complained afterwards that Peyton shouldn't have let Russell Wilson in the whole game? Russell Wilson getting $1 jillion. He can work.
I didn't see that. Who was that made that comment?
Xavier somebody. I don't know.
Okay. Xavier Howard? Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
That's him.
And then what about the AFC North? I know the Bengals play tonight, but the Ravens, that loss came out of nowhere to the Colts.
Well, no, I don't think it did, Tim. They have 8 starters injured, and I'm not excusing, but that puts a whole new paint job on it. And even though I think that Richardson kid is obviously the future of the Indianapolis team, right this second, Gardner Minshew's a better quarterback.
I do like that he's a better manager of the game. That's for sure. And I don't know about the accuracy. He's more accurate probably than
I think Minshew's more likely to win that game is my point. He did.
Yeah, and Tucker almost had a chance to win it, but the other kicker hit one from 50-something in overtime.
Big game tonight, man, Cincinnati.
Yeah, if Cincinnati wins, well, they'd only be 1-2 at that point, but at least get back on the winning track.
Cincinnati loses, they're 0-3, they're done.
Yeah.
They're done. I think Burrow's out for a while, too. I think they made a mistake bringing him back too early. This might be one of those seasons where, and it happens to a lot of teams, Tim, especially in the NFL, where, it's such a short season. And it really is 17 games. Not short chronologically, but that's not many games, right?
Mm-hmm.
You'll see good teams just have a lost season. And I think this might be Cincinnati's lost season.
It's a hockey, Mark. Split squad for the Pens and Blue Jackets. I found the 3-2 result a little bit more interesting. I think Nylander scored twice.
You're coming to the wrong person, Tim. I didn't watch 1 second.
P.O. Joseph, I saw, got on the board, too.
It's too early for that stuff. Tim, exhibition hockey doesn't mean much in the first place. And to these veteran Penguins, who are as old as dirt, It means nothing. Nothing whatsoever. The most intriguing thing, and we talked about this on the podcast, will be how they set up the power play.
That I want to see how they work it out. I do want to see some tinkering and figuring out how the bottom six works. We keep hearing how much they've improved the bottom six. I'd like to see how and how it coalesces.
Oh, Tim, I don't think they've improved the bottom six necessarily.
Oh, you don't?
I think they've given themselves more options.
Mm-hmm.
Now, will they utilize the options? Like they bring in this Colin White, right, on a PTO, who played every single playoff game for Florida en route to the finals last year. Okay, I'm telling you for sure he's better than Jeff Carter. I'm telling you that for sure. A more effective player at that job right this second, but there's no way the coach will ever scratch Jeff Carter.
No, I don't think he will. I also kind of want to see, especially until Gensel comes back, this is more of a short-term thing, but just how they're going to get around his injury for the first however many games that's going to take.
I've seen the future of Sidney Crosby's line, Tim, and its name is Vinny Hinostroza.
Jeez. Then it better be a short-term window then.
Yeah, I mean, I'd trust him to cook up a pot of ragu, maybe. But to be fair, one thing I will say about Hinostroza in my brief exposure to him, he skates like crazy.
Well, Sid likes that.
He gets going. So from that standpoint, that's the first thing I'd try. Mm-hmm. I don't know how long I'd stick with it, but I'd try it.
All right, Mark, let's get one more thing on the board, and that's what happened to Pitt on Saturday night, what happened to Deion Sanders on Saturday afternoon.
Well, I watched the Deion game, until it got insanely out of hand.
So the second quarter.
Yeah, right. Oregon's a real good team. And I think they could have run it up a lot more in the second half if they wanted, don't you?
Yes, I do.
So, Deion, okay, I don't like, and I've said this repeatedly, I don't like that he's made the program all about himself, and he has. I don't like that he ran all those kids off who had scholarships prior, because to me that violates the ethos of college football, that commitment. But then again, with the NIL money, it's a borderline pro league anyway. Heck, not borderline, it's a pro league.
That's what we were saying about Jerkovic last week.
Right. But he's improving that program by leaps and bounds. Now, will he stay there to see it through? I don't think so. I think he's going to go to a big name job, bigger name, when his kids are done there, don't you?
What about the NFL? Do you think he'd try this act in the NFL?
I don't think his crap would work in the NFL. I think X amount of players on a pro team would really like, the pro wrestling heel stick. I think a lot of guys would just defecate all over it the minute he got there.
Let's get to some comments.
Case in point, using Ben's retirement, using him as an example, he would hate it. He would be passive-aggressive, bearing it the first time they put a microphone in front of him.
Eric says, I've noticed this every game. Why don't the DBs ever turn around and look for the ball? Because they're too badly beaten.
Yeah, that's right. Whenever a DB face guards, like we said, Tim, on the podcast, there's a difference in the pros than with college, the rule interpretation.
Yeah.
But whenever the DB doesn't turn around for the ball, it's because he got beat bad and doesn't really know where it is.
Jeremy says a big surprise is Kenny finally threw more than two TDs in a game. We mentioned
he
that.
threw more than one. He had two exactly.
And his passer rating was 108.2. I think it was his first time over 100. It was only his second time over 90.
That sounds like a bad sports talk station. Listen to us talk about Kenny Pickett on 108.2.
And it would be bad because it'd be off the dial.
That's right.
It was podcasting before podcasting was a thing.
It'd be pirate radio. But who wants to talk about the Pirates?
Hey, came back from 9 runs down, Mark. Closer to 4th place.
Well, you know what's happening now is that how much they've improved, quote unquote, this season is being blown out of proportion. Because they haven't improved that much. I mean, they're going to win like 74 games, whatever. That's wait till next year. Wait till they cut payroll because of the TV deal not being as lucrative. And because they go to invest money if they buy into Sportsnet Pittsburgh, which I hear they've backtracked and may yet do.
What'd you think about what they finally decided to do with the color commentators for the Penguin games?
I'm not bothered. I'm not crazy about it either. I don't like the rotating thing. I understand why, because you have a bunch of guys doing color, with the exception of Bork, that haven't done it before, and you don't know how good they'll be. But the rotating stuff, I think the big thing about an announced team is to brand them with the team and get that familiarity, and they're not allowing that to happen. Then again, nobody watches the game because of who the announcers are anyway.
Eric says, will the league ever stop with these abominable roughing the passer calls when a routine tackle like Mink is made?
No,
they're not.
They won't.
They're so invested in this. They're so lawsuit crazy. They know that the players are disingenuous when they talk about how much they want football to stay football, that if there's a slew of injuries, they'll turn around and complain about that. They saw it already with the concussion thing, and it'll happen again. They know it. So they're going to try to protect themselves.
As long as Will Smith doesn't make another movie, I don't care what happens.
Worried about Najee yet, says Calvin. His vision is bad right now. Missed a lot of open lanes last night.
Oh, I don't know that he did that. I don't know that you're qualified to judge that either, watching the TV feed.
I think he might be talking about, there was one at the end, Mark. I know you were in a crowded bar for your appearance. It was at the end of the game. It was on the drive that resulted in the Harvin punt. Where,
right.
Like Pickett was behind him and was actually pointing. Like it was over on that side. If he stayed wide, he would have picked up the first down. I think that was the one that literally left off the screen.
Najee's not a guy to stay wide, though. That's not his strength necessarily.
And I think he's also worried about going out of bounds maybe in that situation, too.
Right, because you can get driven out of bounds. One thing I will say, and by the way, very smart play by Allen Robinson to just go right down when he caught that ball.
He was a smart player, yeah.
I mean, speaking of Taylor Swift. But yeah, I have never been one to think that Warren should play ahead of Harris. But I think a lot of the way the running plays are called might dictate that. I say that very grudgingly, but maybe Warren would be a better fit for what's being called.
Sean says Kenny Pickett is fantastic out of the pocket, rolling out, scrambling. A good OC would design plays around your quarterback's strengths. I do think he's good at that. Now, that said, one of his worst balls was also doing that, though, Mark.
This dink is blaming Matt Canada, even though everything went great. Seriously. Look at that tweet by this dink. And look at his picture. He looks like a dink. Okay? He's blaming Matt Canada after a great game by Matt Canada because we are so conditioned to do that. Dude, change your picture. You look like the kids when I went to high school, there was trucker ball caps.
Do I have one of those? I got to have one of those right now, don't I?
I don't think it's a trucker one, yeah.
Chad says, will we ever see Broderick Jones, Dan Moore yet again with a poor performance?
Did he have a poor performance? I haven't seen Grays or anything like that. I don't know.
I really do think
the Raiders only got one sack.
Yeah, I think and actually, you know what? I think Crosby, strangely enough, I don't think Crosby is quite as good as Bosa or Garrett, but I also thought he was the most impactful of the three. I thought he was the most bothersome of the three.
I think that's true.
I think the other guys on the teams that they played in the first 2 weeks collectively impacted the game more because so much attention was on Garrett and Bosa. Whereas this game, I think they're a little bit more even in their distribution, and that allowed Crosby to be more of a pain in the butt.
There was a play last night. I was, like I said, at celebrations in Imperial. There was a play where the Steelers got a sack. I think it was Watt, but I'm not sure. The Steelers got a first down sack, and the next play, Garoppolo threw for 14 yards and it was 3rd and 3. And the guy turns to me at the bar and goes, I've heard you talk about how the sack on 1st and down don't mean nothing. And I thought you were nuts. He goes, but it happens again and again. You're right. It doesn't mean that much.
Yeah, I think a lot of that's because, we're all, those of us, like, you're in your 60s. I'm going to be 50 in a year and a half. So, like, we remember when they only used to throw on 3rd down and a sack meant everything because it meant the punt team was coming out. But now,
and not only that, but we're playing in an era where the rules favor the offense so much. Like when it was like 2nd and 17 back in the 70s after a sack, you had to fight your way through Vietnam to get guys open.
Right. Yeah.
Now it's just too easy. It's just too easy to do.
Jonah says the fact that the Steelers run the ball at such a high rate when under center, along with Kenny not being allowed to audible, seems set up the run game for failure, especially in short yardage situations. Defense can't just stack the box. Yeah, I didn't track that in real time as much as I wanted to last night, but those numbers that came out from Warren Sharp midweek last week were alarming. And this was the kind of game where you could stretch it out a little bit more because
but once again, this guy with the comment is passively aggressive, blaming Matt Canada. Okay, you are predisposed to do it, and to do it today makes you a dork.
Alex says Steelers defense got carved up by any competent quarterback, and it's been that way for 15 years.
See, Garoppolo is a good quarterback. He just didn't have a great game, but he's a good quarterback.
I think it was very much an indication of some of the criticism of Garoppolo where they just didn't give him enough perfect plays. When the play is perfect, he's a perfect quarterback. When it starts to get varied because of what the pass rush does or like the play is off time.
Here's the thing, though. His record after that loss last night as an NFL quarterback is 45-21. I mean, I can't say he's a bad quarterback. I can say he's been helped to that record by usually playing on some real good teams, but he's pretty good. Didn't have a good night last night, though.
Mark, is your concert seeing season done? Oh, wait, no, you got Greta Van Fleet coming up, right?
No, I did them on Saturday in Cleveland.
Oh, how was the playlist? Did they do any more?
They played Highway Tune. I have underappreciated some of their new songs. I thoroughly enjoyed it. They just pop the crowd all night, and that makes it fun. It's a young band, young crowd. The crowd sings every word. There are times when Josh, the singer, lays out, and the crowd just picks up, the lyric. You know what I mean? Mm. It is like rock was when I was a kid. It is very inspiring. Like when you go see Aerosmith, and Aerosmith were great when they were here. I mean, all the heritage groups, Guns N' Roses, I see them 4 times on this leg of the tour, right?
Yeah.
But there's an underlying feeling of, I can't believe we're all still alive. No, seriously.
No, I'm with you. I understand.
Greta Van Fleet, they're kids. That's how it's supposed to be. And the singer, the singer guitar thing, and I know they don't necessarily appreciate this comparison, but they're Plant and Page. The dynamic between them is Plant and Page.
The way they act on stage, you mean? And they're brothers, too.
Everything they do. And I'm not dismissing the other 2 members of the band because it really is a band. And it has a great look, great presentation. But I'll tell you what's funny. They always try to, they actually don't talk about it, which I give them credit for. When I had Jake, the guitar player, on my show, I asked him in a very apologetic kind of, honestly, I wimped out way about the Zeppelin comparisons. He just kind of walked right past the question. But like their backdrop for a part of their show, okay, is a mountain composed of like boulders, a whole mountain of boulders. And there's a sword in the stone, right? And so I see that. I involuntarily start singing, from the houses of the holy, we can watch the white doves go. From the dark comes Satan's dark. It's like there's a lot of the imageries.
Yeah.
Like they have one song, Tim.
You're doing nothing to get away from it if you're trying to get away.
And that's okay because Zeppelin ripped off Howlin' Wolf. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It all comes from somewhere. Like, and there's one song that's there no quarter. Okay? You know what I mean? Like there's stuff you can just dial in, but they're still so great. And everything comes from somewhere.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, I know what you're saying. All right, that's going to do it for us. We'll be back next week. Don't have a night game for a while. That's good. Get the two.
That is good. Who needs
two
that?
1 o'clock starts, and then they got 2 Thursday night games. Oh, yeah, by the way, Mark, wait a minute. Hold on. I went to Oktoberfest at Penn Brewery on the north side.
What the hell is that?
It's an Oktoberfest chicken hat.
Oh, Jesus. Let's wrap it up.
That was my, while you were seeing Greta Van Fleet, that's what I was doing.
I got Queen in 2 weeks, Tim.
Oh, is Adam Lambert still doing it?
Yeah, Queen, 2 shows in Baltimore. And just as important, Jimmy's Famous Seafood.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. Now you can sports gamble online in Maryland, too, so you're all set there as well.
And I'm all set anyway, but I think it depends if the Aero Tour resumes and how soon.
Okay. For what you're talking about, for concerts total for the year?
Yeah, for a while. I mean, Tyler ruptured a vocal cord at 75. I know people in the industry who may have a similar job who just say he ain't coming back. I mean, they're rooting for him. I certainly am, right? But that's pretty severe.
He needs Elatrash. He needs Aaron Rodgers, Achilles guy.
Tim, if I were him, I would go back to what's worked before, and that is cocaine.
Mark's on at 3. Check out the Madden Monday podcast. It's posted right now at Trib Live at Breakfast with Ben.